Well, the only thing that classes do is give you access to,
More classes.
no, to things that you can't have otherwise, like printing presses and things
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. Well, yeah, don't you think that there is some amount of instruction? I mean, Joe Blow from Kokomo is teaching the class, but he's got to know something.
Well, that's
So he's teaching you something,
what I
right?
hated about the Art Institute was that, here you thought you were going to some place where you're going to get, the highest standard of art.
Art Institute,
training,
I would think that they're the best in the United States. That'd be
However,
my
you
guess.
go to class and you got these people telling you, well, there's so much influence in art. The best thing we can do for you is not to influence you any further. Just let you enjoy, the being in an artistic atmosphere, with an artistic community. It's like, so in other words,
Hey.
you're telling me that I have no reason to go here, that it's just a bunch of
That's a bunch of
artistic
bullshit.
people all thrown together to do their own thing.
Yeah, here's a bunch of artistic people thrown together to create an artistic atmosphere for your ambience and our financial benefit.
Exactly.
You know,
We don't want to influence you any further. Some of the best teachers I had this old German drafting teacher. There were a couple of drafting teachers that were very good.
dysfunctional waste can.
That's the other side.
Yeah.
Liffendahl and another guy named Keen. They were great.
Uh-huh.
They could draw like the kind of drawings you saw that maybe Da Vinci did in studies, models of things, just very quick, every line was meaningful,
Right.
And
Right.
as far as just getting an idea of things down on paper real quick, their ideas were very exacting. That was the kind of thing that I was expecting to go to school for, not to have teachers that, in my opinion, were paint splashers. They were abstract expressionists. They were just splashing paint around.
What were you there mostly for? For learning technique or theory or history or what was your interest?
Practically all of that, but my real interests, I guess, really were more the old masters. The things that were fairly.
Mm-hmm. So you were more interested in like history.
No, not just history, but as far as actually studying the background to things. To me, that's where you always got to kind of start. There is the history of things. Certainly everybody for the longest time always used to study the old masters because there were so many different techniques and stuff.
Right.
And people learn those, and at some point it's all sorted out and it becomes their own style. Even people like the Impressionists, I thought, a lot of them, they started there. And what they did was still very representative of things, it was very accurate, even if it was a looser style, They didn't have like a photographic finish to their pictures like
Right.
the old stuff.
Yeah.
But
even with some of the old stuff, with their photographic finishes, there were still elements of style, and the way they pose people, the way they'd light people, that kind of thing. They would make them distinctive.
Yeah, that they could be dramatic or they could tell stories. There's the picture I always think of are the survivors or whatever it's called. They're on a raft.
Yeah.
The raft is half sunken. There's you can see a ship off in the distance, and all the people on one
It's
side.
like an 18th century painting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I remember.
During the Romantic period.
Who painted it?
I can't think of the name.
Romantic period. That's 19th century. Yeah.
No. Well, yeah, I guess it would be.
Right.
I guess it would be like
Right.
the early 1800s or.
Yeah, early
something like that.
1800s. Yeah.
But it's very interesting because it tells a story across the picture. The raft is like tilted. The low end, there's people who are obviously dead because they're hanging half off the
Right.
raft with their heads submerged in water. And on the other side of the raft, that's up, there's people, like waving their arms, cheering, and they see a ship out
Right.
in the distance.
I know the exact painting you're talking about. I know the exact painting. In fact, I listened to a art historian who he had like half an hour. He was talking about that painting. It was like one of the coolest paintings.
It's hanging in the Uffizi, and it's huge. It's a huge canvas that, looking at this wall from about the base of these windows almost to the top of this thing, would be kind of the height of it. It was probably like 10 feet tall. And it's really a huge picture. And and just, that was the idea then, is that it kind of moves in a progression. There's the people. Well, there's a lot of human elements, that there's a person in the foreground who's helping somebody who obviously, is like in ill health or whatever.
Right.
They're not going to make it, and they're not paying attention to the people who are ignoring all that because they're going to be saved,
Exactly. As I remember, the discussion that I listened to was given by a medical doctor. He'd been a medical doctor for 30 years. And the reason he had a lot of empathy for this particular picture, he just had so much for this picture, was because of the medical aspects of it. Who to help, who not to help. Who comes first, what's the priorities in saving lives, that kind of thing. The moral questions that were involved in this painting.
Well, now that you mention it, I think even the lighting in the painting is like that. The foreground's darker.
Exactly. We're doomed, we're darkened out, and the people that could be saved were highlighted.
Standing in the light.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, it's a very provocative picture. It's a very interesting picture.
Well, that's to name one from that period, but there were a lot like that,
Mm-hmm.
And I guess every artistic endeavor has its merits, to just say that if someone makes a splash on a canvas, that it's very unique and probably, could never be as easily duplicated,
Right.
Jackson
Right.
Pollock was a student of Thomas Hart Benton, who was one of my favorite painters. Even though he was very realistic, he was very stylistic too, that he combined a lot of forms and stuff. His things were usually very organic and almost kind of soft looking, like Salvador Dali paintings or something. Everything had a soft look to it. And from that.
Isn't that a matter to like varnish over the top of the painting at the end, or?
No, I'm just saying
like
the forms, people themselves, like clothing doesn't have a lot of drapes and stuff in it. It's very smooth looking,
Oh, okay.
And landscapes are almost like some of the early American stuff, where trees are actually like little balls,
Mm-hmm.
And it just has a very simple look to it, and that's what kind of the thing that Thomas Hart Benton was into, there's some capital of Missouri or something like that has some big pictures of his, and they're pictures that in a series tell a story, like the history of the United States, the railroad, the steel industries and so on. His pictures are a mural that progressively tells a story as you look across it. And there's a lot of things like that, but that's interesting. That has its merit. I think a lot more so than taking paint and splashing it across the camera or across the huge canvas and calling it what the hell? Jackson Pollock's big canvas was autumn leaves or something like that. It's like somebody splattering paint everywhere.
Right. Splatter on a canvas. Oh, well, look at the sculptures that they have in this place. I'm sure the top dollar was paid for these monstrosities.
Yeah, maybe they'll haul these away to Governor's State too.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. I'm sure that'll be their ultimate resting place, to be over stinking Governor's State.